In the stillness of the early hours of June 25, 2025, as most of the world slumbered, a series of events were set in motion that would dramatically alter the geopolitical landscape. The quiet of the night was about to be shattered. Under the cloak of darkness, the United States initiated a series of highly targeted airstrikes. These were not random acts of aggression, but carefully planned operations designed to hit specific locations with maximum impact. The primary targets were Iran's heavily fortified Fordow and Natanz nuclear facilities, sites long suspected of being central to the country's uranium enrichment program. These facilities represented a critical node in Iran's nuclear ambitions. The operation, meticulously executed under the cover of darkness, was designed to minimize collateral damage and maximize the element of surprise. Stealth aircraft and precision-guided munitions were key to the mission's success. The strikes aimed for maximum precision, utilizing cutting-edge military technology to ensure that only the intended targets were affected. This was a calculated effort to degrade Iran's nuclear capabilities without causing widespread destruction. The coordinated attacks sent a powerful and unmistakable message to Tehran, signaling a significant shift in U.S. policy towards Iran's nuclear program. The message was clear. The United States was prepared to use military force to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Explosions rocked the fortified sites, sending shockwaves through the region and leaving behind a trail of destruction. The blasts were a stark reminder of the destructive power of modern weaponry. The sudden violence shattered the pre-dawn calm, disrupting the lives of ordinary citizens and casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over the region. The tranquility of the morning was replaced by the harsh reality of conflict. Residents living near Qom and Natanz awoke to the sounds of explosions and the sight of smoke billowing into the sky, their lives irrevocably altered by the events unfolding around them. Initial reports coming out of Iran were fragmented and often contradictory, reflecting the confusion and chaos on the ground. The full extent of the damage and the number of casualties remained unclear. But as the hours passed, it quickly became clear that this was not just another isolated incident, but a significant escalation of tensions in the Middle East. The Pentagon soon confirmed that this was a deliberate U.S. military action, authorized at the highest levels of government. The world braced itself for the potential consequences. The strikes followed months of escalating tensions between the United States and Iran, a period marked by diplomatic failures and increasing military posturing. The core issue remained Iran's continued pursuit of nuclear enrichment, a program that the United States and its allies believe is aimed at developing nuclear weapons. The airstrikes marked a dramatic and dangerous shift from economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure to direct military engagement, a move that carried significant risks. As news of the strikes rapidly spread across the globe, the international community reacted with a mixture of shock, condemnation, and cautious optimism. Diplomats worldwide scrambled to convene emergency meetings and initiate back-channel communications, desperately seeking a way to de-escalate the crisis. The immediate priority was to assess the potential fallout from the strikes and to prevent a wider regional war that could engulf the entire Middle East. The world now waits with bated breath, watching to see how Iran will respond and what steps the international community will take to avert further escalation. Uncertainty hangs in the air, as analysts debate whether this was a carefully calibrated one-off strike intended to cripple Iran's nuclear program, or if it represents the opening salvo in a broader military campaign aimed at dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure and reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. With the dust still settling over the targeted facilities, the world holds its breath, bracing for what comes next. All eyes are now fixed on Tehran, waiting to see how the Iranian leadership will react to this unprecedented act of aggression. The future of the region, and perhaps the world, hinges on whether diplomacy and reason can prevail, averting a catastrophic conflict that could have devastating consequences. Tensions had been simmering for months, with international observers increasingly concerned about Iran's nuclear program. In response to what the U.S. perceived as an imminent threat, the decision was made to launch a targeted military operation. At the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stepped up to the podium, the weight of the situation evident in his demeanor. He revealed the operation's codename, a name carefully chosen to reflect the long-term commitment and resolve behind the mission, Enduring Sentinel. Addressing the assembled press and, by extension, the world, he described the strikes as a defensive measure, a necessary step taken to protect U.S. interests and prevent a potential catastrophe. The primary objective, he explained, was to delay Iran's nuclear ambitions, to push back against the progress they had made, and create an opportunity for diplomatic solutions. Hegseth was careful to emphasize the precision of the strikes and the extensive efforts taken to avoid civilian casualties. The planning, he assured, had been meticulous, with every precaution taken to minimize collateral damage. Following Secretary Hegseth, General Caine provided further details on the military execution of Operation Enduring Sentinel. He detailed the use of stealth bombers, highlighting their ability to penetrate heavily defended airspace undetected. He also spoke about the deployment of advanced bunker-busting munitions, specifically designed to target and neutralize deeply buried facilities. The strategy, Caine explained, involved targeting air defenses first to clear the way for subsequent strikes, ensuring the safety and effectiveness of the operation. Initial reports from the field indicated that the Pentagon claimed primary objectives were achieved, with key targets successfully neutralized. However, officials cautioned that a full damage assessment was still pending, and the true extent of the operation's impact would take time to fully evaluate. In justifying the operation, Hegseth cited credible intelligence, information gathered from multiple sources that painted a concerning picture of Iran's nuclear capabilities. This intelligence, he asserted, indicated that Iran was nearing weapons-grade uranium, a point of no return that would have dramatically altered the geopolitical landscape. The urgency of the situation, according to Hegseth, left the U.S. with no other choice but to take decisive and urgent action. The administration, in its official statements, framed the operation as preemptive, not aggressive, emphasizing that the goal was to prevent future aggression rather than initiate it. Recognizing the international implications of the operation, the administration immediately called for international support, seeking to build a coalition of nations to address the Iranian nuclear threat. In a direct message to Tehran, Hegseth warned that the U.S. does not seek war, emphasizing the desire for a peaceful resolution to the crisis. However, he also made it clear that the U.S. will act again if necessary to protect its interests and those of its allies, leaving room for diplomacy, but underscoring the unwavering commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. The world now watches with bated breath as the immediate aftermath of Operation Enduring Sentinel unfolds, to see if Iran will escalate the conflict through retaliatory measures, or if they will choose a different path, seeking a diplomatic off-ramp to de-escalate the situation and return to the negotiating table. Iran's Fordow facility, buried deep under a mountain, was engineered to withstand even the most powerful attacks. Heavily guarded tunnels and reinforced concrete plugs protected critical shafts, making aerial bombardment extremely difficult. This cat-and-mouse game saw Iran fortifying as the U.S. developed stronger bunker busters. Sealing the shafts improved security but limited operational flexibility. Despite these defenses, the U.S. targeted tunnel entrances and potential weak points, believing new munitions could breach them. Iran claims its fortifications held. The U.S. insists significant damage was done. The true impact remains hidden beneath tons of rock and concrete. The effectiveness of these countermeasures is now at the center of global debate. Former President Trump quickly claimed the strikes had set Iran's nuclear program back by years, declaring victory on social media. He framed the operation as a fulfillment of his tough stance and a direct result of his maximum pressure policy. Trump warned Tehran that any retaliation would be met with overwhelming force, aiming to deter further conflict. His bold claims, however, outpaced the Pentagon's more cautious assessment, which awaited full damage reports. Intelligence agencies are now analyzing satellite imagery to verify the extent of the destruction. Trump's rhetoric seeks to shape both domestic and international perceptions, but the facts remain to be seen. The world is watching to see if this is a decisive blow or political overstatement. The true setback to Iran's program will become clear in the coming weeks. News of the strikes sent shockwaves through Congress, with lawmakers demanding answers about the lack of consultation and the risk of escalation. Senate leaders called for a classified briefing, pressing the administration for raw intelligence and legal justification. Top officials, including Defense Secretary Hegseth and General Caine, will face tough questions about the threat assessment and the operation's authorization. Lawmakers want clarity on the risks of Iranian retaliation and the potential for a broader conflict. The outcome of this briefing could shape Congress's support or opposition to to further military action. If unconvinced, Congress may move to limit presidential authority, adding a domestic political crisis to the international one. The administration's transparency now faces its most critical test. In Tehran, Supreme Leader Khamenei addressed the nation, condemning the strikes as a desperate act by the U.S. He claimed the attack failed, insisting Iran's nuclear program would continue with greater determination. Khamenei praised Iran's military and engineers for thwarting the aggression, framing the event as a victory. He promised a firm response but left its nature deliberately vague, keeping the world guessing. State media amplified this narrative of resilience and defiance, rallying domestic and regional support. The regime now faces pressure to act, having promised retaliation and denied significant damage. Any perceived weakness could undermine its credibility at home and abroad. The world waits to see if Khamenei's rhetoric will translate into action. The International Atomic Energy Agency, tasked with monitoring Iran's nuclear program, now faces a daunting challenge. The IAEA expressed deep concern over the strike's impact on its ability to verify Iran's activities. Inspectors must assess the safety of nuclear material and the status of monitoring equipment at Fordow and Natanz. The risk is that Iran could use the attack as a pretext to halt cooperation or expel inspectors, plunging the world into uncertainty. The IAEA's independent assessments are now more crucial than ever to cut through political claims. Its reports will be closely watched for evidence of damage and the status of Iran's enrichment activities. The agency's ability to maintain access may be the key to preventing a total diplomatic breakdown. The fate of Fordow's advanced centrifuges is central to the crisis. Iran had been enriching uranium close to weapons grade, prompting U.S. action. The IAEA confirmed hundreds of new-generation centrifuges were operating at Fordow before the strikes. Whether these machines survived is disputed. Trump claims destruction, Khamenei claims protection. The lack of IAEA access means the world is left guessing, relying on satellite imagery and intelligence. Without inspectors, speculation and worst-case scenarios fill the void. The true state of Iran's nuclear capabilities remains unknown until monitoring resumes. This uncertainty heightens the risk of miscalculation on all sides. The calendar marks a critical juncture. As of June 26, 2025, a date etched in the annals of international affairs, the global landscape has shifted dramatically. The world faces deep uncertainty, a palpable tension hangs in the air. News headlines scream of escalating conflicts and potential global instability. The stakes have never been higher. This precarious situation arises after the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear sites, a decision that has reverberated across continents and ignited a firestorm of debate. The targeted facilities now stand as stark reminders of the escalating tensions. The immediate aftermath is marked by conflicting claims from both sides, a dense fog of war obscuring the truth. News outlets scramble to piece together the narrative while accusations and denials fly across the airwaves. Military alerts are being issued worldwide, defense systems are on high alert, and nations are bracing for potential repercussions. The threat of further military action looms large. Urgent diplomacy is underway, a frantic effort to prevent further escalation and avert a catastrophic conflict. Government officials and diplomats are working tirelessly behind the scenes, seeking a path to de-escalation. The extent of the damage to the Iranian nuclear facilities is still being assessed, and Iran's next move remains unclear, shrouded in secrecy and speculation. The world holds its breath, waiting to see how Iran will respond to this unprecedented act. There is a significant potential for asymmetric retaliation, a response that could take many forms and target unexpected vulnerabilities. Military strategists are working overtime to anticipate and counter any potential moves, or perhaps even more alarmingly, accelerated nuclear activity, a desperate attempt to rebuild and advance their nuclear program in defiance of international norms. The U.S. and its allies brace for possible responses, bolstering their defenses and coordinating their strategies in anticipation of any potential aggression. This includes preparing for cyber attacks, a new frontier of warfare that could cripple critical infrastructure and disrupt daily life. The world is also bracing for potential disruptions in global oil supplies, which could send shockwaves through the global economy and exacerbate existing tensions. Diplomatic fallout is immense, with alliances strained and international relations thrown into disarray. There is widespread criticism from rivals and palpable unease among allies, as nations grapple with the implications of the U.S. strike and its potential consequences. The IAEA's monitoring mission is in jeopardy, its ability to verify Iran's nuclear activities severely compromised. This threatens the entire non-proliferation framework, the delicate web of treaties and agreements designed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. The path forward demands both unwavering military readiness, a strong deterrent against further aggression, and deft diplomacy, a commitment to finding peaceful solutions and avoiding a catastrophic descent into war. The strikes may have temporarily delayed Iran's nuclear program, setting back their progress and disrupting their plans. But they have also deepened mistrust between nations, poisoning the well of international cooperation and making future negotiations even more challenging. This has made a diplomatic solution harder to achieve, pushing the world closer to the brink of a dangerous and unpredictable conflict. The world watches with bated breath, every nation holding its breath as the drama unfolds on the global stage. All are hoping leaders will find the wisdom and restraint to pull back from the brink, choosing dialogue and diplomacy over the devastating consequences of war.